Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, May 15th, 2017. And we are in regular session tonight, so we'll be reading a series of ordinances. Our first item of business is to establish a quorum. We do have that tonight. We have our ward representatives with us, and so we'll be proceeding with reading of these ordinances.
President Isley, I would like to request that the agenda be amended to remove the executive session from the agenda. It's not necessary this evening. It was for the purpose of pending litigation, but I'd ask that it be removed from the agenda.
Okay, thank
Second.
you.
So move.
A motion and a second for removing this item and amending the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? The motion carries, and we will not have the executive session at the end of the meeting. We now have moments for communications. Are there any council members who have communications tonight to share? And I don't have any either. Mayor Patterson?
I have a few.
Okay.
A few just updates on things around the city that I want to convey, and that is that the city's going to be closing down Highland Avenue between Roosevelt Drive and 254 Highland Avenue tomorrow. It's going to be from 8 a.m. until completion of a valve replacement in that area. Potholes being filled, just to give people a heads up. Starting tomorrow, is going to be Joneswood, Courier, Stroud's Terrace Factory, and Foster. And then on Wednesday, filling a water break hole, which is Highland, on Highland Avenue. I've received notice from the Ohio EPA that there's a draft permit that's been issued for a facility within Athens. It's actually the Athens Hocking Reclamation Center landfill. This is in Logan, so it's in the area. There is a 30-day period in which the permit can be viewed and public can make comment on that if they care to. Again, this was an item that came down from OEPA.
Mayor, for what? For what kind of disposal?
Well, this is the landfill, or Athens Hocking Reclamation Center landfill. Again, I can send the link to the government channel to put it up for anyone who wants to view the permit. I've not seen the permit myself. I'm just reading to you the letter that we received from OEPA.
Yeah, I guess I'm just asking, I wonder if it's an additional permit or for something different to dispose of in the landfill.
Yeah, it doesn't state in the letter. I also received this yesterday, and this is, last week I'd asked the County Commissioner, Chris Schmiel, if he could provide me some information, and that being how many individuals in Athens County would be affected by the repeal, or do you have that as well?
Well, I wrote a letter for council to sign off to
Outstanding.
Portland. I thought you got a copy. But
I may have.
Okay. That's the end of business tonight.
So you probably have the same
Yeah.
numbers that I do. Excellent. It's
yeah, give
about 24% of those who are receiving Medicaid services that are going to lose all services. And so it was a great compilation of information I received from Scott Zielinski. 33% of the people who have been able to access health care through the expansion suffer from depression and anxiety disorders. 32% are diagnosed with substance abuse or dependence, and 1 in 4 have been diagnosed with at least one chronic condition, mostly high blood pressure or elevated cholesterol. So I'm very happy to hear that council is writing a letter. I will likely write one as well. I know that the mayor of Chillicothe has done this as well. The last thing I want to share with everyone, this is good news for a change. There's a trade magazine, Ingenium, which comes out, EMH&T produced this, but on page 6 of this document is a nice write-up. Andy Stone had part of this, was
Wow.
part of this write-up. And it's the roundabout that'll be on Stimson, McKinley Avenue. But it's kind of cool that we got in a trade magazine.
Yeah.
Again, for anyone who's curious, I don't know if you can get a good shot of that. This is the magazine itself. So, anyway,
Great,
that's all my
thank you.
communications.
Okay, and we now have some other comments. Councilmember Butler? Yes.
Well, I wasn't sure if President Nisley or if the mayor was going to acknowledge this Friday's street tour. So we should announce that to the public.
That would be a good thing to do. Thank you.
I'm not sure, I don't recall the time.
9
9.
o'clock, 9 in the morning, and if folks are interested, that tour is open to the public. And you just need to contact our clerk of council to let her know that you'd be attending, so we make sure we have adequate transportation.
Meeting out front
Yes.
Likely, that's where we've met
in the past.
last year and in the past.
Thank you so much. And I didn't mean to neglect the law director. Do you have any reports or communications?
I don't.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 5617 is an ordinance to ensure local match funds for the Mobility Manager Grant. And this is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Nisley. I move to adopt 5617.
Second.
And this is our match. The Mobility Management Grant for ODOT, it's for $7,500. We've done this now for quite a few years. And it helps with accessibility and other transportation needs, public transportation generally in our community.
Okay, so we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. For approval of ordinance 5617, any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have a series of ordinances for second reading, so I'll be reading the titles of those tonight, and then we'll move on to our ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 5717 is an ordinance authorizing water line replacement on Avon and a portion of Dalton Avenue. This is project number 310 and is introduced by Councilmember Butler. Ordinance 5917 is an ordinance authorizing 2017 street paving and repairs. This is project number 312 and is introduced by Councilmember Pappy. Ordinance 6017 is an ordinance declaring certain items no longer needed for a municipal purpose and is introduced by Councilmember Butler. Ordinance 6117 is an ordinance amending the 2017 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 6217 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 517, the 2017 staffing levels in the mayor's office and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ordinance 6317 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 15116, the 2017 staffing levels, part-time and seasonal employees, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. We'll now move on to reading our ordinances for first reading. And the first of these is 6417. It's an ordinance authorizing the Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council, known as SOPAC, as agent for the city to enter into a natural gas program agreement with the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, known as NOPEC. And this is introduced by all members of council. And I'll offer some explanation, and then we also have the Executive Director of SOPEC, Mr. Eddie Smith, with us here tonight if we have any additional questions or comments. And as explained by Mr. Smith and also Mr. Kiger, who came down from NOPEC at one of our committee meetings last month, we have an opportunity to implement a gas aggregation program that ordinance had been passed some years before, and we are now have an opportunity to move forward with this. There are 2 ordinances and 2 public hearings that will need to happen. and they're happening in a certain sequence. Tonight, what we're doing is having the first ordinance that authorizes SOPEC to act as our agent for the city of Athens, so that we can move forward and SOPEC can notify NOPEC that we're wanting to be part of the aggregation agreement. Our law director and clerk of council and city administration have all reviewed the documents that are part of this ordinance, and I appreciate the help and expertise and all the work that's gone into this in the past week, so thank you. And as we read this, then in May and June, we will also then have in May 2 public hearings. And those public hearings need to happen so that we have an opportunity to inform the public about what we're moving forward with on the gas aggregation program and to receive any comments or questions from the public about this. And we'll probably be having them, I believe, on 2 different days at 2 different times or? Same time, okay, but on 2 different days at 7 p.m. On the 15th and? The 5th and the 12th, excuse me, the 5th and the 12th of June. And then we will move forward with the final ordinance that will approve the operation and governance structure for this agreement. And just so people are aware of the long-term process of then what will happen is if this is passed then by council members after the public hearings, these 2 ordinances, then we will notify customers of this if it's approved. And once again, it will work like our electric aggregation program where it will be an opt-out. So people will automatically become part of the gas aggregation program unless they notify us that they do not wish to participate. And then our expected timeline is that gas under this new aggregation agreement would flow to customers by October of this year. So. And do we have any questions or comments from council members or administration, or any comments that you have, Mr. Smith, on this?
I thought you summarized it.
Okay. I had your slides. You gave a good summary last week.
Good job.
Yes, Councilmember Pappy.
I think President Nisley, the only other comment was that we would be able to have a seat on the governing body, which I think is an important thing for our constituents to know as well, city residents to know that when decisions are made that, and I believe the representative is the mayor, is that correct?
That is correct, that we will, the SOPEC will have a representative at NOPEC as a board member.
Right.
And because the city of Athens is, as I understand, the sole member of SOPEC at this point that will be having gas aggregation, then it would then be that the mayor will represent the city for us in that. Yes, good point, Councilmember Pappy, thank you. Yes, Mayor Patterson.
Just to add real quickly, and again, this came from Mr. Kiefer, is that there's 15 seats on the board, and so by going through this process and being a board member, a seat at that table, I would largely be representing not only the city of Athens, but southeastern Ohio, since they currently, NOPEC doesn't have representation from this part of the state either.
So it's good to have that representation. Yes, Councilmember Reisner.
Just as an aside, what location do the board meetings take place in?
I believe it's in the Cleveland area somewhere. Eddie may know exactly.
Yeah, I attended one last year. They're around the Solon area, if you know where that's at. That's where the headquarters are.
The reason I asked was that, like Ohio University tends to move their board from campus to campus. I was wondering if NOPEC would also consider moving a board meeting perhaps to Athens.
For one person,
One very important person.
very important city.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
Hey, call me self-promoter, but so what?
When appointed to that board, I can certainly ask.
Exactly.
it's worth asking. Okay, good point.
Don't ask, don't get.
The one other thing that I'd say is the overarching message too is that the reason that we're entering into the gas aggregation as we did into the electric aggregation is so that we can hopefully save our citizens money by being able to leverage with these other institutions that are part of SOPEC and NOPEC, so that we can get better gas prices for all of our consumers.
Yeah, I like to see mine.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you.
Yes.
As well as being mindful of renewables and the potential to use our valuable dollars in that direction. Thank you.
Right, okay. All right, we'll move on to Ordinance 6517. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to submit an application and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement and designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Nisley. Briefly, we did discuss this during committee meeting, and as you recall, some of the efforts that have already underway to enhance and work on the water treatment plant are underway. This would continue that with the discussion of possibly including solar panels with this project. Essentially, it's empowering the Service Safety Director to authorize and submit an application for the water supply revolving loan account with an agreement working with the Ohio EPA and the Ohio Water Development Authority for construction of these improvements at the water treatment plant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal.
Ordinance 6617 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to acquire right-of-way, to advertise and accept bids where necessary, and enter into contracts for construction, engineering services, and right-of-way acquisition services for the West Union Street Sidewalk Extension Project. This is project number 309 and is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Nisley. For all of council, I just, as we discuss this, to be aware that this is a CDBG funding that we're finding for this project. And this is also one of the things that's been discussed as being cut out of future budgets, the CDBG. Just to know that we've been the recipient in this city for quite some time with CDBG grant funding and have been able to improve our infrastructure considerably. This particular area on West Union has not had a sidewalk. It's a very walked area as there's continued to be more development there. There's recently been some new housing rehabbed, and we need accessibility. In terms of the right-of-way acquisition, Mayor, I wasn't aware that we needed that, but I guess because of where it's going to be located, we are moving into some properties along that area there. So I probably, for safety purposes, I'm guessing too. I don't know why we need to do that.
I mentioned this last week in terms of the right-of-way through that area. I was incorrect on which side, north or south. I think I indicated north. It's the south side that has a rather large right-of-way, but it's the north side of West Union that the sidewalks need to go. There's also, that's where the bulk of the commerce is along that part of the West Union corridor is on the north side as well. And that's where the sidewalk's going to go in. So that's why you're seeing the acquiring right-of-way in that area.
And I guess I would also mention for people who travel that frequently is that there also is a section on the south side that has no sidewalk. It kind of ends by the bus stop right there. But we will be now connecting on the north side. It'll be fully connected.
Correct.
And that's also where the bike trail does cross. So it's just an appropriate place to improve the sidewalk there.
Good. Okay. Ordinance 6717 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter into contracts for construction and engineering services for the East State Street US 33 project, number 288, and authorizing the auditor to make an inter-fund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. So this is the legislation that we've continued regarding East State Street. We do have the grant money in place, and as folks can see here, the whereases with the TIF district and the funding of $2 million from the Small Cities Program, and more money from the safety program funds. So we just need to move our funding around into the right lines here, and that's what this ordinance does. The total project, let me just make sure I have I'm right here, is $6,252,800, if I'm correct. Am I correct?
That's correct.
For the total project, so it is quite a comprehensive project. So this ordinance moves all of those funding lines and grant monies where they need to be in order to begin the bidding process.
Okay. One of our biggest projects on the streets of recent, I think. Ordinance 6817 is an ordinance amending the 2017 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. 6817 reads as follows. The 2017 appropriation ordinance 150-16 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums. $95,511.50 to General Fund 101.120, Other Administrative, TC 300, a BWC rebate, and $681.77 to Recreation Community Center Debt Fund 470.490, TC 300, accrued interest to pay bond counsel for preparation of short-term loan documents.
Okay.
Read.
All right. Ordinance 6917 is an ordinance authorizing the payment of a prior year expense and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. 6917 reads as follows. The auditor is hereby authorized to expend up to $7,589.75 from the 2017 General Fund Municipal Court 101.106 TC 200-300 to pay prior year Chase Bank fees.
Okay. Thank you.
We didn't know that last week, what the bill was for. Now we know.
Now we know, yes.
For bank fees.
Okay.
Expensive
Ordinance
fees.
7017 is an ordinance authorizing the lease of property not currently needed for a municipal purpose and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We've talked about this several times in the various committee meetings. Basically, it's part of our sludge field, and we cannot use this particular part anymore because it's been over-sludged. And so it's now been, it will be put up on our adoption at third reading to allow Service Safety Director to authorize the advertise for sealed bids and accept the highest and best bid for the lease of this 14-acre piece of sludge land.
Thank you. We'll now move on to announcements and other business, and we have several items. First of which is that we will have a special session next Monday night, immediately preceding our committee meeting. We do need to, because of a pending expense, suspend one of the ordinances read tonight, so we'll have a special session for that purpose. We have several sets of reports to accept and approve, the first being the auditor's report for April 2017, the financial reports.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of those minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I neglected to have the disposition of our minutes, approval of our minutes from our May 1 meeting done at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm doing so now and would appreciate a motion from one of the
So
council
moved.
members.
Second.
So we have a motion and second for approval of the minutes from the May 1st meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We do have an appointment to the Environmental and Sustainability Commission, and this is to fill somebody's term that's been vacated. and Dr. Stefan Gleisberg has indicated an interest in serving on this commission. He's active with the Athens Conservancy, is current president of the Athens Nature Center. He's been a resident of Athens for 10 years. He's a former professor in the Department of Environment and Plant Biology at Ohio University, and is also an instructor at the Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine. So he's indicated an interest in serving, and I think we'd be glad to have him volunteer for this. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second for approval of Dr. Gleisberg for the Environmental and Sustainability Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. From Council Member Fall, we have an initiative that she has taken and a letter to Senator Portman regarding our health care reform.
Thank you. So another week, another piece of outrage. Well, we put together this letter. It seems that some of our elected officials really don't understand what resolutions mean, so we were thinking that maybe a letter may garner more attention. Dear Senator Portman, as Athens City Council members, we take an oath to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens we serve. We are duty-bound to write to you to express our dismay at what was passed as health care in the U.S. House of Representatives. The American Health Care Act is not a health care plan. It places the most vulnerable people in our society at risk. Athens is one of the poorest counties in Ohio. There is deep generational poverty. For many, the health care gained through the Medicaid portion of the Affordable Care Act was literally a lifesaver. Many of our neighbors are getting the needed care to deal with such diseases as diabetes and high blood pressure. For the first time, people are healthier and able to do what many people who have health care take for granted. For some, their only access to health care was via the emergency room. That stopped with the ACA. But the AHCA, as written, will bring back those days. The ACA promoted preventative health care. The AHCA will send us back to the days of crisis care. As passed by the House of Representatives, the proposed legislation will put millions at risk of losing their health care. The idea that you can cut $800 billion from Medicaid, and still have a functioning health care system is illogical. Those cuts will hit the most vulnerable. In Athens County, 1 in 4 people are on Medicaid. 1 in 4 could lose the health insurance that helps them deal with such life-threatening illnesses like diabetes or heart disease. Add to the cuts in Medicaid the changes to how pre-existing conditions are treated, and you have thousands that will not be able to afford health insurance. High-risk pools are not an answer to insuring people with pre-existing conditions. It is not just people on private insurance that are impacted by changes in how pre-existing conditions are treated. It would only take one job loss employee-provided health insurance to find yourself out of work and priced out of private insurance due to a pre-existing condition. To put it bluntly, the AHCA will kill people. Instead of writing a new law, we urge you to fix the few problems in the Affordable Care Act. The ACA has proven to be cost-effective. It has proven to reduce bankruptcies due to catastrophic health events. The ACA has saved rural health care systems. Those systems will fail if the AHCA is passed in present form. And with those failing hospitals and clinics, people will lose their jobs. Healthcare jobs provide people in our community a pathway out of poverty. For these and many other reasons, we urge you to fix the ACA. Build on its successes. Please, do not condemn people, our neighbors and friends, to a life filled with sickness and pain. And Chris Nisley will sign it on behalf of the entire council. Thank you. Questions?
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Well
Yes,
stated.
Councilmember Reisman.
Yeah, well stated and to the point. I'm glad you wrote it and not I, because I've been a little more blunt. The travesty that's been pulled so far is just, it's stunning, really. The hypocrisy behind it all. So, good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for crafting that for us. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda. Anybody interested from the audience? Okay. All right, and we will now move on to adjourning our meeting.
So moved. Just a second.
Second.
Okay.
I want to stay.
We have a motion and second for adjournment of our meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. It's 7:31, and we'll see you next Monday night.
Same. That time.